Harry's wife, 105.1.2. He leaves. Hello, I'm HG Tudor. Harry has left Harry's wife. She tried to stop him with a preventative hoover. She failed. He marched out the door. She then smeared him, and that has enabled her to offset some of the fuel loss that she's experienced by his departure and gain a sense of control in those moments, subconsciously, over Harry by her supporters, members of the coterie, basically seeing him as a dirtbag for walking out on her. What happens then? I've discounted a sit-down separation scenario, but rather that of the departure of the victim who's had enough and needs to get out, which is entirely likely when it comes to what he has been experiencing. Agreements might come later down the line, but at this juncture, he's had to go, and that is what he has done. Although, in the moment, she gained a sense of control through the smearing, that is not the end of the matter. She doesn't have a ready-made replacement for Harry. There might have been some mild flirtations, but there was nothing serious going on in her courting a replacement. Often, the narcissist does this during a sustained devaluation. Not necessarily immediately, but at some point, potential replacements are being courted. Sometimes they are never actually that good that come near replacing, and therefore they don't trigger disengagement, and they're just affair partners, intimate partner secondary sources, either dirty little secrets or of the shelf variety, that the narcissist picks up and puts down at periodic intervals during the sustained devaluation. In other instances, a replacement comes along as ensnared and looks like they're going to do the job, and therefore the narcissist focuses on them, giving them candidate intimate partner secondary source status, which means that at some juncture they will be basically swapped. But that's something, of course, that would be in the section that we will consider later with regard to disengagement. Here, Harry has blindsided Harry's wife by departing at such a stage where she didn't have anybody really being cultivated to be a replacement for him. So it's not like she can immediately say, "Hey, Elon, come on over," or "Bill, time for you to drop by." She isn't at that stage with anybody, and that causes a problem for her. She needs an intimate partner primary source, because although a mid-range narcissist can survive for a short period without one, it becomes too difficult. Imagine you get the bulk of your shopping from one supermarket with some bits and pieces from other shops around the edge. All of a sudden, you can't use that one supermarket any longer, and that means that you have to go to 20, 30, 40 different stores every single time for your weekly shop. Imagine how tiring that would become. Imagine how difficult it would become with regard to how it impacts upon the control of your life. That's why the narcissist, particularly lesser and mid-rangers, have intimate partner primary sources. It's quite simply darn convenient. Far easier to control one person who provides the bulk of fuel, character traits and residual benefits than have to deal with 50 different people of equal measure. To understand more about this, please do access Pipelines and Changes to the Narcissist Fuel Matrix, which you'll find in the Knowledge Vault. They are very interesting indeed. Accordingly, Harry's wife's narcissism is basically saying this in the subconscious: we need an intimate partner primary source. What are our options? Well, she could go and find a new one. Problem with that is it will take time to find a suitable one and to bring them under control. Time is not on her side. She could potentially get a non-intimate partner primary source, family member or friend. We'll come back to that. But what the narcissism will do is basically say, get him back, i.e. Harry. Remember, she tried that when he sought to leave through the preventative hoover, and that failed. She didn't then try again because of the massive wounding that she experienced. That massive wounding has been dealt with through the smearing that has taken place. It has steadied the ship somewhat. Her fuel levels have increased. So in the next compartmentalized moment, the narcissism, because Harry will come back up on the radar, will say, in the subconscious, okay, let's try and get him back. And this is when the initial Grand Hoover takes place. To understand this and its detailed breakdown and the ways that it's done, you can do no better than read my book, No Contact. It shows you the various power plays that a narcissist engages in to get the victim back. But essentially, she will look to get him back by engaging with him directly. She will want to speak to him. She'll want to sit down with him. She'll use intermediaries to try and get a meeting with him. And that is what her narcissism will focus upon. She will focus on getting together with him, guilting him into a meeting, blackmailing him into a meeting, whatever it takes to put the two of them together so that she can state her case. It could be that she fakes a suicide attempt and news reaches Harry that that's what's happened, so that he comes racing back to the Monty Shit Show mansion, and there, feigning having taken some pills or maybe taken a handful of them, he's overcome with guilt for what has happened and it draws him back in. It could be that she feigns an emergency with the children. Archie has strapped himself to the parental trees. I can't get him free. I need your help. It could be an emergency with regard to another member of the family. There are lots of different ways that this might occur. And in No Contact, I go through many of those power plays, and you'll be able to see which may well be applicable in this scenario. Certainly, a fake suicide attempt or fake emergency with the children are high on the list of power plays that she would utilize in order to look to draw him back in. The key is to get him to come back in the sense of having a meeting together. And then once that has been established, once that has been done, she will then plead for forgiveness, promise change, and basically go through a similar approach to that of the preventative Hoover, with some adjustments to take into account listening to him and what he wants. She'll be more amenable. In effect, the narcissism has had a shock. It's had a shock in the sense that Harry decided that he was going, and that he did go, and she didn't manage to stop him. And therefore, the narcissism will tread a little more carefully, commensurate with that mid-range status, in trying to get him to come back. Pleading, being much more amenable to change, will go to counselling. You're right, these things that I've done, there'll be false admissions, there'll be false contrition, all designed to try and get him to come back. And she will blitzkrieg him with affection, with promises of change, with perhaps even showing some change, but of course it's only temporary in nature. Asking for a trial period. Come back, give it a week, see how we get on. Let's just take it day after time. The children are missing you. She will throw it all at him as part of this initial Grand Hoover to get him to come back. Now, whilst this is all going on, what about the outside world? Externally, there will be silence. There may be some rumours, of course, that he has left, that there is this separation. There may be some rumours about the attendance of emergency vehicles as a consequence of a fake suicide attempt. And naturally, the PR machine will be galvanised to quash that. Because all of those things, of course, threaten Harry's wife's sense of control, and she cannot have that. What her narcissism must do is look to get Harry back in as the intimate partner primary source and ensure that there is nothing that can derail those attempts to do so, and that there's nothing going on in the background, so to speak, to prevent her extending control over other people. So whilst a select group will know that there's trouble at Mill, the wider world will not be appraised of it. It isn't the stage to go into that, telling the world about what has happened. The narcissism will guide her to keep it within the family, so to speak. That while she will tell friends and family, and of course they will be entrusted not to leak it, although there is always a risk of that happening, her narcissism will guide her to look to play nice, to draw him back in, to get him to sit down, to have a powwow together, to have some kind of summit, possibly with certain members of the coterie there facilitating it, getting members of close family members to attend also, to say, come on, Harry, don't throw all of this away, you're good together. Her demonstrating, I've listened to you, you're right, I wasn't giving you the time and affection, some of my behaviours have been wrong. Remember, this is just a narcissist saying what the victim wants to hear, and it isn't anything genuine. This is what is done as all part of this blitzkrieg attempt, as part of the initial Grand Hoover. And Harry's wife, with no replacement to hand, would do this. Now, if she had a replacement intimate partner primary source, either there'd be no initial Grand Hoover or it would be short-lived. But we're not considering those scenarios in details. Here, she hasn't got a replacement, and therefore her narcissism drives her to try and get Harry back. It's likely alongside this that she will have caused her mother to come and stay with her. This is part of as her being a non-intimate secondary source, but also for the potential that she could be promoted to a non-intimate partner primary source. Some narcissists do this. Where there's a situation, for instance, where the narcissist marriage has gone up the Swanee, and they haven't got a replacement to bring in immediately, and they haven't been minded to try and find one, often they will end up perhaps moving in with the parents again, and one of those parents becomes the non-intimate partner primary source. Less often, but can happen, the narcissist shacks up with a friend, who then becomes the non-intimate partner primary source. And therefore, they are the person that is the easiest to control, that also provides the bulk of fuel, character traits, and residual benefits. So, for instance, if it's a family member, their potency of fuel becomes promoted as they move from non-intimate secondary to non-intimate partner primary. They also provide character traits, but also residual benefits. Access to networks, perhaps financial support, a roof over the head for the narcissist, ferrying them round, looking after the children while the narcissist is attempting to resolve matters vis-a-vis the departed intimate partner primary source. It's highly likely that Doria would be the one that would be relied upon in that regard, but it's also quite possible that, given his fake white knight approach, subject to his health condition, that Thomas Markle would be roped in this regard. Oh, Daddy, look what he's done to me. You warned me about him, and I didn't listen. I'm such a silly girl, and I'm so sorry that I'd not been in contact. It was all Harry's fault. He's an absolute tyrant, and he kept me. Don't worry, my little princess. I knew he was a wrong 'un. You can't trust the British royal family. Come here. I'll look after you. So there's a possibility that he would become the non-intimate partner primary source, pending ongoing matters. So at this juncture, the ship was steadied by the smearing, and then thereafter would follow the initial Grand Hoover to try and get Harry to come back in, and at the same time potentially utilising a parent as the non-intimate partner primary source. They would also be utilised for the continuance of bad-mouthing Harry to them, that they agree, so there is that indirect assertion of control continuing over the absent Harry. There would also be some resistance with regard to the children, but initially she would be looking to play nice and would let him come and see them and spend time at the house with them, with the hope of patching up and resolving matters with him as part of the initial Grand Hoover. But in our scenario, we now move to the situation whereby the initial Grand Hoover has failed. So what would follow after that? Join me in the next section as I continue to explain all of this for you in fascinating detail.